We all saw improvement on Saturday, but I think the most important thing we saw was growth.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson. That's me. Alabama internet legend Jimmy Stein. That's him. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. We'll talk about Game Time here in just a little bit. Want to thank you everydayers for being here every day. Thank you newbies for being here today. And thanks everybody for making this your first listen every single day. You guys are the best. Yes, I have just woken up, sort of, kind of. So don't let the hair fool you. But Jimmy, you know, I was so geeked last night. I know you were too. Very exciting. I have had some people text me this morning and say, I don't understand why you're so excited. It was just ULM. Why do we always crumble when we play good teams on the road? I said, first of all, we don't crumble when we play good teams on the road. We crumble when we play bad teams on the road because Vanderbilt wasn't that great. Neither was Oklahoma. Neither was Michigan. Neither was Tennessee. And we didn't play well. So your argument's already invalid. But the other thing is, we're still finding ourselves a little bit now in one of the most incredible transitions of coaches you can possibly have. So I think what I saw last night, though, and we'll get into the weeds, was not just improvement, not just bounce back, not just pride from taking heck from fans and media alike by the players saying, okay, I will show you what we got. I think they went past just improvement. I think they grew.
Yeah, I don't understand diminishing the performance. I certainly understand saying don't get carried away. It's just Louisiana-Monroe. Of course we get that, of course. But the way in which Alabama won the game, again, go back through Saban's 17 years and try to find similar demolishings. You can find them, but they weren't plentiful. In fact, in those game situations, many times during the Saban years, the performance was sort of just on autopilot or cruise control. Not that there was ever any danger of losing those type games, but Saban didn't beat the Louisiana-Monroes 73-0 all the time. As a matter of fact, it was sort of almost a rare thing. So don't diminish that. As teams from around the country last night about playing games like this, a lot of them had results that went the other way entirely, and a lot of them played closer games than they anticipated. Alabama's performance in week one was an F. Alabama's performance last night was an A. Simple as that. Now, what do you do going forward, which is all that matters? How did the Louisiana-Monroe help you for Wisconsin? Certainly gave the quarterbacks a ton of confidence. Ty now playing with confidence. Didn't look like he had a lot of confidence in Tallahassee. Had plenty of confidence last night. That's going to help. And let me give a special shout out to a guy I don't think we mentioned last night, but a player we've been waiting to bust out that I thought played easily the best game of his career was James Smith. James Smith pretty much whipped his guy on every snap that he was out there. 3 tackles for loss. No telling how many there would have been had he not split snaps with so many players as the game went on. But James Smith, the guy we've been waiting to say, hey, he's turning into a dominant college football player. He may have turned a corner last night. Yes, it was Monroe. He's going to have to do it against Wisconsin. He's going to have to do it against SEC opponents before we can say it emphatically. But that was a different James Smith to me last night. I thought he was really dominant. The defense gave up next to nothing, less than 150, I think, total yards. Just a complete demolishing of Monroe because the offense had well over 500 yards. The defense held them to under 150. I think they only ran a handful of plays in Alabama territory all night. But there were some minor things that I think we could look to see still have to get better, including running the ball on offense. A.K. Deere, fantastic at the end against a tired Monroe team that had given up. Kevin Riley has been the story of 2 games into the season as far as I'm concerned in terms of a guy we didn't expect would be a major thing, and he is a major thing. But 3 other backs, Richard Young, Dre Washington, and Daniel Hill, their numbers were pretty pedestrian. I mean, their numbers all together, even combined, pretty pedestrian, not horrific, around 4 yards a carry or less. But I don't think we're consistently running the ball as well as we need to be. And defensively, I'd still like to see more pressure. They didn't really throw the ball much last night. Florida State only threw it 14 times. So nobody make too much of this, but we don't have a sack at all through 2 games. Now, that's a product of who we're playing. Again, Florida State only threw it 14 times. Monroe, I don't know how many times they threw it last night. It wasn't much. So we didn't have a lot of opportunities, but there are no sacks through 2 games, which is notable going into game 3.
They threw it 18 times last night. Now, to your point, I agree. The lack of sacks is eyebrow raising. But I would say when the 2 opponents have only combined for 32 attempts, and then last night you did have 12 tackles for a loss, which is most since 2021 when Alabama went for overtimes with Auburn. So it's, again, there was more pressure. Yes, I would have liked to have seen a little more. There were some times, in fact, that I thought we should have gotten a sack and we didn't. I mean, we went back there and we just didn't make the play.
We let him escape. We were that one step short again, which was kind of the thing last year, right? Where we had a lot of pressures, but not a lot of sacks. That's sort of what it felt like last night.
Yeah, and again, the improvements there, but I also think the growth was there, but I think there's more room. So I'm sort of glad that there were still some areas for more improvement so that you just don't go, what a perfect game. I mean, truth be known, given the first Saturday, this was about the most perfect a game could be in terms of a bounce back. And I don't care the opponent. I mean, I've again, this morning I got some texts from folks saying, hey, you pump the brakes, ULM and yada, yada, yada. And I said, I have watched us, Alabama, beat the brakes off of teams. And even though it was 62-0, when I looked back and watched the game again, I was thinking, we just didn't look great. We're just so much better than them. It didn't matter. Now, we could have won this game probably 62-0, being so much better than ULM. There's no doubt. But we did it with a purpose. And I think there is a difference. It wasn't like ULM just handed us the ball several times in their own territory. We had to, Ty's pass to Isaiah Horton. That's growth. That's serious growth. And not only that, I think there was growth from the coaching staff. The run for Ty Simpson, which was very Jalen Milroe-esque for a touchdown, where he essentially is almost like a toss sweep to himself, where he goes around the right side and scores a touchdown. That's what we did with Milroe last year. And everybody's like, well, of course you did. You had, Secretariat back there running the ball. But now we did it with a guy who can run, but he's not Secretariat. I mean, and he still made it happen. It gives other teams something to prepare for.
The growth from, there's been this knock on Ty before he ever became the starter, that really emotional, doesn't bounce back from bad plays.
Yeah.
We sort of saw some of these whispers we'd heard about Ty game 1, where he got sort of frustrated and panicked and couldn't drive the car out of the ditch, right? How about last night? I think maybe the most remarkable thing leading to that great Isaiah Horton pass, 2 touchdowns on that drive have been called back because of penalty. And penalties that may not have really existed. They were very questionable calls. The PI on Jeremy Bernard before his touchdown catch. And then I think there was a holding penalty or something. But 2 touchdowns have been called back. Did Ty get frustrated? That would frustrate anyone. No, Ty just kept working through the touchdown pass to Zay Horton on the same drive. I think that's some growth there, where you didn't get frustrated in a frustrating situation. You just kept your eye on the prize, kept his head down, ended up scoring 3 touchdowns on one drive, which I noted on Twitter is probably a school record.
Well, the other thing was, it wasn't like these were touchdowns that were called back that somebody else did. Ty made the pass to Jeremy Bernard at dealing with pressure, and it was a heck of a play. And his deep ball was finally pretty. I had a friend of mine who's called me like 4 times this week saying, "Man, I really liked your line last week about Ty Simpson's deep ball was so ugly you wouldn't pick it up at the booth at 2 in the morning." And I was like, "We're 10 in the morning."
And I said the booth didn't exist anymore. In fact, does exist. And a friend of the owner is like, "Oh, we exist. It's downtown. I encourage everyone to go over there and get a beer."
And now for our new sponsor, the booth. Anyway, so yeah, but I made fun of his deep ball last week because it looked terrible. Well, this one looked good. And Ty, like you said on the confidence side, Ty Simpson went from Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off in terms of confidence to Lucille Booth in Arrested Development. He went, he went from no confidence at all to all the confidence in the world.
Just from Cameron on Ferris Bueller's Day Off to Ferris Bueller would have been good. You went the extra step and involved a whole nother show and cast. But I like that.
Well, for those who don't know, Lucille Booth is one of TV's greatest characters of all time.
Oh, no doubt.
I mean, just unbelievable. I mean, I highly encourage, not the new seasons that were on Netflix, the old seasons. Go check them out. So yeah, look, we're going to come back and talk a little more about some of the defensive statistics and maybe some of the receiving statistics. One in particular stood out to me that's kind of nutty. But I do want to tell you about Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and the 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit Supply House to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people and real service. Then, of course, as always, y'all know it's game time, because game time is the best. Always is the best. Has been the best since its inception. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands. There's just nothing like it, yo. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping up at checkout. Psh, craziness. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you get. I pulled up Game Time just a little bit ago and saw some amazing deals for Wisconsin next week. And now you want to go to that Wisconsin game, don't you? You do. You know you do. So go get you a ticket at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. So, one thing that jumped out to me yesterday, we don't necessarily have to get in the receiver. Maybe we do like a segment a week on position groups this week because everybody looks so good. I want to give them all their love. But all of the receivers except one, I got to do a quick count. Again, this is me doing no preparation, but just very quickly, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players that caught a pass from Alabama quarterbacks this week.
Yeah. Some back, some tight ends, but yeah.
But I just said 11 receivers. Okay. And so all of them had double digits in yardage, except one who was Caleb Edwards, who had a touchdown. So it's not like everybody did well. I mean, that's awesome. And then for Caleb Edwards to get the touchdown, by the way, and the pass from Austin Mack was really nice. It was where it had to be. At first, I thought it was behind him in real time. And then when they showed the replay, I was like, oh, he had to put it there. And because that was the one thing that I would say that I did notice from Austin Mack, if you want me to start picking nits, that every pass is a frozen rope.
How about this? I think things happen, Luke, during the season so fast. We don't get enough time to go over it all. We build up and we build up. We talk all summer and we guess what it's going to look like. And then it happens. And then the games go by so fast that we don't talk about it all. But I think this is significant. And I think it's the first time we've addressed it because of Caleb Edwards. We signed 2 transfer tight ends that were experienced players over the summer. Brody Dalton, a 5th-year senior that we signed out of Troy that spent some time at UAB, and Jack Samarco from West Virginia. 2 scholarship transfer tight ends from the portal. They don't play. You know why? Caleb Edwards and Marshall Pritchett play. The freshman tight ends are so good. They're ahead of these experienced players they got out of the portal, especially Caleb Edwards, who second game in a row, he's the second tight end on the field. Cuevas is the starter. Cuevas plays the most. Caleb Edwards is the next tight end on the field. So Caleb Edwards beat out Jay Lindsey, who's been here for a while. He beat out Brody Dalton. He beat out Jack Samarco, and he's out there playing. And, of course, Danny Lewis, supposedly one of the, best tight ends on the team and a guy that we projected to be a number one. He's been hurt and out. I think he's missed the first 2 games entirely hurt. Don't know what his situation is. Hopefully DeBoer will address that this week in terms of, are we going to get Danny Lewis back? I mean, I don't know. But Caleb Edwards, shout out to him, a true freshman, late arrival true freshman. Wasn't even here in the spring. And he's our number 2 tight end, catches his first touchdown pass last night. By the way, looks like $1 million of his uniform.
You ain't lying.
I bet the NFL scouts have already noticed 2 games in what Alabama's freshman tight end looks like. Boy, shout out to him for just playing such a significant role, because that's not somebody that we saw coming. And, of course, Kevin Riley, arguably the biggest story on the team, going from a guy that we thought would be Alabama's RB5 to RB1 for right now. And when Jam Miller gets back, hey, Jam, you're going to be splitting carries with that dude.
Yeah, and again, there's some – I've even seen some people be like, how did we not know Kevin Riley was this good? Well, I think you sort of get a pecking order in your mind sometimes, and you think, okay, well, Kevin Riley is smaller, and then you put him in the game, and dude's got a burst. He's not the best running back in the league, but dude's got a burst. Now,
he won the spot in those scrimmages, the 2 fall scrimmages. That's where he leapfrogged the other guys in his performance in those 2 scrimmages that we do in fall camp.
I wonder, in the history of Alabama football, is the combined height of Austin Mack to Caleb Edwards the tallest touchdown catch of all time?
He threw that touchdown pass, Austin Mack, down on the goal line when he dumped it over, the one to Cuevas, it over. That play is so designed to be a jump pass. It looked like a jump pass, but I don't think Austin Mack ever actually left the ground because he's so tall. He's built for that play because, again, that's a jump pass almost everywhere. So the quarterback literally leaps into the air so he can see directly over the scrum to a tall target behind the scrum. He didn't even have to jump. I'm going to see the replay to see if he left his feet at all. But what a great play by Austin Mack. Very excited about him. And, hey, I brought this up all the time last week. I think Chris Lowe or somebody had an article about, hey, the plan is they're going to play Keelan Russell. That was something they wrote this past week. And I commented on that. I think it was on the BOL board or something. I commented on that and say, wait a minute. The news here isn't that they're going to play another quarterback. Keelan Russell's third. I mean, Austin Mack is number 2. And I think Austin showed last night why he's number 2. But boy, here comes Keelan. And what a nice QB room. And Ty Simpson, I read his quotes following the game. Ty Simpson was extremely gracious talking about Austin and Keelan and sounded not just like a teammate, but like a big brother to Austin Mack and Keelan Russell, and how proud he was and how happy he was that they played and how happy he was that they played well. That really is somehow, some way, a tight room despite the competition. Those 3 guys get along super great.
One thing that worries me about Austin Mack is when he does take a sack, assuming he ever gets in, for some good minutes and he does take a sack, his whole neck and head may just come off. Merton Hanks thinks he has a long neck.
I think it's just he looks different for a quarterback because he is. I mean, a lot of quarterbacks are tall. Austin Mack's really tall. He looks like one of Nate Oates' basketball players somehow got into the wrong dressing room. But then you watch him play quarterback and you're like, this dude's a baller. He's a real football player. Love his delivery. Loved his command last night. And again, Alabama's just on a roll in terms of evaluating quarterbacks. And by that, I'll say, look at what Dylan Lonergan's doing at Boston College. Look at what Eli Holstein is doing at Pitt. These are guys that would have eligibility to be on Alabama's roster right now, but they're starting other places and playing really well. Austin Mack and Keelan Russell are that way as well. Not that I ain't wishing the portal on either one of those 2 guys because they're so good. We need them to be here. But gosh, Alabama's on a roll evaluating the quarterback position, just hit after hit after hit.
And another stat that we'll talk about defense here in this third segment. I want to get into some SEC talk, but maybe we'll do that on the next show. A stat that came up yesterday about middle of the day, Penn State shut out their opponent. I don't remember who they played. It was some dump truck team, and Penn State didn't look great, but the stat came up. Penn State was
they played
FIU. Okay, so the stat came up that said Penn State's I think it was their 13th shutout since 2014, which is second in the nation to Alabama with 15. And then, of course, Alabama gets a shutout that night. So Alabama now takes it to 16 and increases their lead, which I'm down with. I dig that. So I thought that was good. I do want to talk some defensive stuff here right after I tell you about the game cap. The game cap. Look, love them. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it'd be the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles fans wore back in the 80s and 90s, back when Jimmy and I were in college and everything was much cooler. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use code Locked On, you will get your vintage hat for $16.99. Come on now. That's couch cushion money, y'all. Head to thegamecaps.com, grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design, and use code Locked On for an exclusive discount, because legends like Jimmy Stein, they wear the game. Defensively,
I love that Game Caps is bringing back retro hats. Do you think we're ever going to go back in time, like whenever you see pictures of ball games in the 20s and 30s, and all the men are there wearing those cool fedora-looking hats?
Fedoras and pork pies, and
like everyone's wearing those. Everyone is wearing those. And now, of course, nobody wears them. And I'm like, maybe we should bring those back.
Everybody wore overcoats back then, too.
Maybe they're all selling watches.
So defensively, we talked about this. No sacks, but 12 tackles for loss. Pretty impressive. James Smith was a menace. 3 tackles for loss, 4 total tackles. He was in on every play, it seemed like. Deontay Lawson looked good again. We bragged on Dre Kirkpatrick. How about Dre Kirkpatrick getting kicked out, I think, in the third quarter? Was it third or fourth?
It was the fourth quarter.
It was, okay. Well, he didn't.
It's not like he's the first half of Wisconsin, but, he's not a normal starter anyway. But he looked like a future starter, which is something me and you have been saying since the day he signed.
Oh, how about him? 4 tackles and a tackle for loss and a fumble caused in whatever little bit of time he played. Other thing that I guess if I want to be moderately for a second, and I hate to do it because everything's on such a positive vibe, but if to placate the people who are like, y'all are overreacting to ULM, I still thought Bray Hubbard wasn't as good as he can be. Okay. Is that okay to say?
I think that's possibly or probably fair, and I think there's still some hangover. I don't know if Bray is. I don't know. Some people sort of made Bray a little bit the poster child for the Florida State debacle on defense. I don't know that was fair, but he didn't play well, as is most of his teammates. But I have confidence in him. Sab is obviously a good player at safety too, but I think the defense needs to make us continue to grow, continue to make a statement. I'd like to see more pressure on the quarterback. It's not really on the DBs, but more pressures, more sacks. Wisconsin's going to be a challenge. I mean, there obviously there's a different level of athlete that we're going to be facing next Saturday. Maybe not as good as the best SEC teams, but those are legitimate Power 4 football players from the second best conference in college football. And I think that's the game where the Hubbards and Sabs and defenders need to stand out, because you got to hold Wisconsin to 10 or 14 or 17 points to give your offense a chance to win the game.
Yeah, and I think they will. I mean, Wisconsin looks a little pedestrian offensively so far. I know they put up, I think, 42 yesterday, but they sort of came late, I think, when they wore down Middle Tennessee.
It came late. They struggled early. I mean, I think even in the third quarter, that was sort of tight. That was sort of a close game, and then they scored a lot late. Give them credit to pull away at the end. But they have not looked like gangbusters against, I believe, Middle Tennessee State and Miami of Ohio are their two victims to their 2-0 start. But hey, I like that Alabama's playing a 2-0 team. You need a very strong strength of schedule to crawl out of the hole that you've created for yourself after week one. And by the way, beating Monroe, to placate that crowd, as Luke said, beating Monroe doesn't erase what happened last week, no matter how impressive it was. Beating Wisconsin will not erase what happened game one. But what it does do is it puts you on that path. Be on that path to erase week one. And that's what the way they beat Monroe, and now in Wisconsin week, that's what you're doing. You're putting yourself on the path to that, but you hadn't done it yet.
Yeah, and I wish the people that posted things on various message boards like, are we sure we're going to beat ULM? I wish that they would look at this game and go, okay, I need to chill for a minute. And by the way, something you and I always say, and I think we're the only podcast in the country that says this. You play your best once or twice a year, you play your worst once or twice a year, and everything else in between is what you are. Maybe Alabama has played their worst and played their best. And I'll tell you something, as long as the in-between is closer to last night, I think we'll be okay. And the other thing is, I just looked up Georgia because, we're all going to look past Wisconsin, whether we should or shouldn't, because we know Georgia's the redemption game for us in terms of, okay, if you want to try and make up for Florida State, Georgia's where you do it. I'm not saying Georgia's not good. Georgia's really good, but they didn't set the world on fire yesterday. So it's not like they're unbeatable. So let's just all calm down a second. We're all still mad about it, Florida State. Hey, you think you're mad? I went to the game. I had to sit there through that stuff. I paid $300 for a ticket like a fool. So
about the Georgia game, I don't want to talk too much about Georgia this week. I'm going to try to pledge not to talk too much about Georgia this week because you really need to focus on Wisconsin. But I said it this summer, took a little heat. I think I said it on Twitter. I might have mentioned on the show when I was talking about the SEC and stuff. I said this summer that Tennessee could beat Georgia in Knoxville. I'm going to make that call this week. I think Tennessee wins that game Saturday. I said it back in July, even after Nico left for UCLA, which has been a complete disaster. And I sort of chuckle over that, to be honest, because UCLA, again, was really bad yesterday. But I like Tennessee to beat Georgia in Knoxville, which would also put a wrinkle in the Alabama-Georgia game where you're going into that big Alabama-Georgia game, maybe with both teams with a road loss. But yeah, I do. I like Tennessee to win. I think Aguilar. How about this? Maybe Aguilar is a better player than even Gunnar Stockton, who I think is better than his critics suggest. But I like UT there.
I'm going to go another direction and say I hope Georgia. Well, not another direction necessarily, but I hope Georgia blows them out because I don't like the idea of Georgia coming in playing us with the chance of going 0-2 in the SEC. I think that affects some things. Also, how about the storyline of Georgia's, got the longest winning streak at home in the SEC at 33 now in SEC history. And Alabama, who's been Georgia's bugaboo, has a chance to end that. We'll talk about that a lot more coming up. I certainly want to get into Wisconsin a little bit later more this week. Wisconsin is what you think they are. This is not like a Nebraska team coming in that has changed offenses. This is going to be the same Luke Fickell, the same stuff coming in. But, I do want everybody to take a moment and just take the day off and take a deep breath and appreciate what we did yesterday. Alabama has beaten teams 42-0 and looked like crap in the past. And it's very rare that you beat somebody 73-0 and you're like, probably should have been worse. I mean, it almost certainly could have been worse. And
11 possessions, 10 touchdowns and a field goal. That's good against air. I mean,
it's good. It's just good. So
let's remember when they're like, oh, it's just ULM. Okay. Last year, ULM played 2 SEC teams. Auburn scored 48. Texas scored 51. A Texas team that made the Final Four of the playoffs, they, quote, only scored 51. Alabama scored 73.
Well, we will talk about the SEC in the next podcast, but I did want to say, hey, shout out to the league. Oklahoma getting a big one. John Mateer is the dude. That game looks tougher and tougher.
Don't etch his name on the Heisman just yet, but I would say John Mateer might be a clubhouse leader for that Heisman.
Agreed.
It's early.
Vanderbilt down 10-0. I mean, again, there's no quarterback. John Mateer's great, and he's probably, after 2 games, he's the SEC quarterback of the year or whatever. There's no quarterback in the country that plays his system as well as Diego Pavia.
There's no quarterback that does more for his football program than Diego Pavia, who has single-handedly, it feels like, turned Vanderbilt from the worst team in the SEC to any other team in the SEC, which is a heck of a compliment. Because playing Vanderbilt now, no different than playing South Carolina, Missouri, all of them. They're very good. And shout out to how they did. I thought Virginia Tech would win the game. And when they took that early lead, I'm like, I knew it. I knew Virginia Tech was just going to be a little. And then Vanderbilt slaughters them in the second half. Just, boy, Clark Lee's doing a tremendous job up there.
Also, and I sincerely apologize if this really did happen and I don't know about it. Billy Napier in Florida, the only SEC team to lose, because Mississippi State gets a big win over my son's team, Arizona State. And so, yeah, that was a big win for them. Florida loses to South Florida. By the way, a South Florida team we play in week 2 next year. I hope that Golish has gone somewhere else. When Billy Napier has looked like this for a while, and it just dawned on me what he looks like. His hair is cut so short, it looks like he's had the top of his skull removed, had some surgery, and then it's put back the way his haircut is. Does it look like that to you? Has anybody ever noticed that? Is that just me?
He certainly has that type of a haircut. But that's a bit extreme to basically say he's been lobotomized and is still.
Florida fans would agree with me.
Not too. How many Florida fans, by the way, would trade as soon as the game was over? You want to trade, Coach? You want to trade Napier for Alex Golish? I mean, the Florida fans would have been. Try to find a Florida fan that wouldn't when that game was over last night. Golish is going to be a big thing this year, I think, on the coaching. You know, once the coaches start doing the coaching merry-go-round, I think Alex Golish is going to end up with a Power 4 job. He's like Russian. Did you know that? I think he was even born in Russia.
That's true. I mean, you don't want to fight him. But when they were shaking hands, it even looked like to me that Billy Napier took his office keys and just handed them to Golish. Like, here you go. You're going to need these more than I am.
I root for Billy, but that's not making much of a difference for Billy. I'm sorry about that. And I think LSU, I don't know that LSU finishes off Napier next week because that's a tough draw playing at LSU. And I do think LSU is going to beat Florida. And boy, it's just going to be really tough for Napier. But heck, we were saying that a year ago, and he won his way out of it. I don't know that he will this time.
Well, a lot like Alabama and Florida State, if Florida can go into Baton Rouge and win, there will be people who still doubt him, and rightfully so. But there will also be a glimmer of hope. Like, we need a little bit more time. Lagway looked good at times, but Florida needs more dudes, and that they just need some more time. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.